The grainy footage played on repeat across every screen in the emergency command center. Admiral Chen watched it for the 100th time, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the control panel. The video showed a playground, an ordinary scene from any human colony world. Children laughing, running, their voices carrying across the warm afternoon air. Then the shadows fell. The massive alien vessels had appeared without warning, their angular shapes blotting out the sun. In the chaos that followed, the screams of children mixed with the whir of tractor beams as dozens of young ones were lifted into the air. Parents rushed forward, desperately trying to grab their children, but it was futile. Within minutes, 37 kids from the New Eden colony were gone. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cracked as she delivered the report. "We've confirmed similar incidents across 3 other colonies. Total number of abducted children now stands at 142. Ages ranging from 5 to 12. The Admiral closed his eyes, trying to contain the rage building in his chest. In all his years of serving in the United Earth Defense Force, he never encountered anything like this. Humanity had faced its share of hostile aliens since achieving faster-than-light travel, but this was different. This was personal. "Have they made any demands?" he asked, already knowing the answer. The Kryvacs, as they called themselves, hadn't bothered to communicate at all. They'd simply appeared, taken what they wanted, and vanished into the depths of space. "Nothing, sir." But our long-range scanners picked up their energy signatures heading toward the Orion Arm. "We believe they have a base somewhere in that sector." The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. The Orion Arm was vast, filled with countless systems and potential hiding spots. Finding the children would be like searching for a needle in a cosmic haystack. But that wouldn't stop them. It couldn't. Admiral Chen straightened his uniform and turned to face the assembled officers. Each face reflected the same determination he felt burning in his soul. "Ladies and gentlemen, what happened today wasn't just an act of aggression, it was a fundamental mistake on the part of our adversaries. They clearly don't understand human nature, or they would have known better than to target our children." He pulled up the star charts, the holographic display casting a blue glow across the room. "The Kryvacs might think they're safe in their hidden base, might think we'll negotiate or bow to whatever demands they eventually make. They're wrong. They don't realize that they've just awakened something they can't control." The Admiral's fingers danced across the control panel, marking potential search zones. "Throughout our history, humanity has faced countless challenges, endless adversities. But there's one constant that our enemies keep failing to grasp: we are at our most dangerous when protecting our young. The Kryvacs think they've taken hostages. What they've actually done is sign their own death warrant." Orders began flying across the command center as ships were mobilized and battle groups assembled. The largest fleet humanity had ever gathered was about to deploy. But this wasn't just a military operation, it was a rescue mission, and failure wasn't an option. As the activity around him reached a fever pitch, Admiral Chen received a priority message from Earth Command. The words made his blood run cold. Preliminary analysis suggested the Kryvacs weren't acting alone. This was part of something bigger, something that threatened not just humanity but perhaps the entire galaxy. He looked again at the frozen image of children being lifted into the alien ships, their small hands reaching out for parents they couldn't reach. Whatever the Kryvacs' true motives were, whatever grand plan they were part of, none of it mattered now. They had crossed a line from which there was no return. "Send word to every human settlement and ship in range," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's resolve. "Tell them we have a Code Omega situation. And send this message on all frequencies. Let our enemies hear it loud and clear: you took our children. We're coming for them. And heaven help anyone who stands in our way." The fleet would launch within the hour. Across human space, every available ship was joining the cause. The Kryvacs had made a terrible miscalculation. They were about to learn why, throughout the galaxy, There was one universal truth that every spacefaring race eventually discovered: never, ever, threaten human children. The next 48 hours aboard the UFS Hyperion were a blur of activity. As flagship of the rescue fleet, the massive carrier housed not just military personnel but also some of humanity's finest scientists and xenobiologists. They worked around the clock, analyzing every scrap of data about the Kryvax, searching for any weakness they could exploit. Dr. Catherine West hadn't slept since the abductions. Her own nephew had been among those taken from New Eden Colony, and she channeled her grief into her work. As the fleet's leading xenopsychologist, she had studied every known spacefaring species, but the Kryvax were different. Their behavior didn't fit any established pattern. "Look at this," she said, gesturing to the holographic display in the ship's main laboratory. Admiral Chen and his senior staff gathered around as she played back enhanced footage from the attacks. "Notice how precise their movements are. Most species we've encountered show some form of hesitation or emotional response when dealing with children. The Kryvax showed none. It's as if they were following a program." Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned closer to the display. "You think they're artificial intelligences?" "No," Catherine shook her head. "Their ships are definitely piloted by biological entities. But their behavior suggests heavy conditioning or perhaps even some form of mind control. They're acting like drones following orders, not independent beings making choices." The Admiral absorbed this information, his tactical mind already forming connections. "So you're saying there's someone else pulling their strings?" "That matches with Earth Command's intelligence about them not acting alone." Before Catherine could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A young ensign burst into the laboratory, his face pale. "Sir, we've detected a signal. It's being broadcast from somewhere in the Orion Arm, but it's coming from one of our children." The team rushed to the bridge, where communications officers were already working to isolate the signal. When they finally cleared up the static, what they heard sent chills down their spines. It was a child's voice, but it spoke in a monotone that no human child would use. "We serve a greater purpose now. Do not follow. Do not interfere. The evolution must proceed as planned." Admiral Chen's jaw tightened. "Can we trace it?" "The signal's bouncing between multiple relay points, sir," the communications officer reported. "But we've narrowed it down to a cluster of systems near the Perseus Transit." The Perseus Transit, a region of space notorious for its gravitational anomalies and mysterious disappearances. Of course they'd hide there. The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. "How long until the fleet can reach that position?" "At maximum safe speed, 3 days, sir." "But the transit is treacherous. We'll need to proceed with caution." Dr. West had gone pale listening to the transmission. That voice. There was something wrong with it. The speech patterns, the vocabulary, it wasn't natural. "Whatever they're doing to our children, they're already changing them." The implications hung heavy in the air. Time wasn't just running out, it was working against them. Every hour that passed meant more opportunity for the Kryvax and their mysterious masters to accomplish whatever sick transformation they had planned. A junior officer approached with a data pad, her hands shaking slightly. "Sir, we've detected similar transmissions from other sectors. They're all using our children as mouthpieces, all speaking about evolution and greater purpose. But there's something else. Each transmission contains encoded data packets. Our AI is still decrypting them, but preliminary analysis suggests they contain genetic information." The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the picture they formed was horrifying. The Admiral turned to Dr. West. "Could they be using our children as test subjects for some kind of forced evolution?" "It's possible," she replied, her scientific detachment warring with her personal anguish. "Human children are remarkably adaptable, their bodies and minds more plastic than adults. If someone wanted to engineer a new form of human..." She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Everyone on the bridge understood the implications. This wasn't just an abduction, it was an attempt to hijack humanity's future. Admiral Chen's voice was steel when he spoke again. Plot a course through the Perseus transit. I want our best pilots on point, and tell the fleet to prepare for combat. We're not letting them complete whatever experiment they're running. As the crew rushed to comply with his orders, he noticed Dr. West staring at the communication display, tears in her eyes. The monotone voice of the child was still playing, repeating its message about evolution and purpose. We'll get them back, he assured her. All of them. She wiped her eyes and straightened her lab coat. Yes, but will they still be themselves when we do? Whatever's being done to them. It's happening fast. That voice we heard, that child has only been in their custody for 2 days, and already. Then we'll find a way to reverse it, the Admiral stated firmly. Humanity didn't come this far in space to let some advanced race play God with our children's DNA. If they want to see evolution in action, we'll show them how humans evolve when backed into a corner. A sudden burst of static interrupted them, and a new transmission began playing. This time it wasn't a child's voice, but something else, something that spoke in harmonics impossible for human vocal cords to produce. Your resistance is anticipated but unnecessary, the voice said. Your children are the key to unlocking potential you cannot comprehend. They will become more than human. They will become the bridge. Admiral Chen's response was to cut off the transmission mid-sentence. He'd heard enough. Send word to the fleet. We move in 1 hour. Whatever's waiting for us in the Perseus transit, whatever grand plan these beings have for our species, they're about to learn a harsh lesson about human nature. As the Hyperion's engines powered up, Dr. West returned to her lab. She had work to do. Understanding what was being done to the children was the first step to saving them. And somewhere, deep in the treacherous spaces of the Perseus transit, something ancient and powerful waited, certain of its superiority, unaware that it had just made the biggest mistake in its long existence. The Perseus transit lived up to its reputation. Massive gravitational waves buffeted the fleet as they navigated through the spatial anomalies, each distortion threatening to tear their ships apart. But human determination proved stronger than the laws of physics. After 3 grueling days of careful navigation, they finally reached their destination, and what they found defied explanation. That's impossible, Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered, staring at the main view screen of the Hyperion. Before them floated what appeared to be a massive space station, but its architecture defied human understanding. The structure shifted and moved like a living thing, its surface rippling with patterns of light that hurt the eyes to look at. Admiral Chen studied the readings with growing concern. How long has this been here? How did we never detect it? The gravitational anomalies in the transit would have masked its energy signature, one of the science officers explained. And look at these readings, the station appears to exist partially in another dimension. That's why our long-range scans never picked it up. Dr. West burst onto the bridge, her tablet displaying urgent data. Admiral, we're picking up biological signatures from inside the station. Hundreds of them. And her voice caught. Many of them match our children's DNA patterns. But they're changing, shifting somehow. Before anyone could respond, the massive station pulsed with light, and every screen on the bridge lit up with the same message: the process cannot be stopped. Interference will result in termination of subjects. The Admiral's response was immediate. Launch rescue pods. All ships, prepare for a blast of energy erupted from the station, cutting through space itself. Where it struck, reality seemed to tear open, revealing glimpses of something else. Something that shouldn't exist in our universe. Evasive maneuvers. Chen shouted, but the energy beam wasn't targeting the ships. Instead, it created a barrier between the fleet and the station, a wall of twisted space-time that no conventional weapon could penetrate. Sir, Rodriguez called out, her voice urgent. We're receiving transmissions from inside the station. It's the children. The bridge speakers crackled to life, filled with dozens of young voices speaking in unison. But these weren't the monotone, controlled voices from before. These were scared kids crying out for help. Please. We can feel them in our heads. They're trying to make us forget who we are. Mom? Dad? Are you there? It hurts. Everything's changing. Then, cutting through the children's voices, came that alien harmonic tone they'd heard before. Their transformation proceeds as planned. They will transcend their limited forms. They will become the bridge between dimensions. Your presence here changes nothing. Dr. West's hands flew across her console, analyzing the data streaming in. Admiral, whatever they're doing to the children, it's accelerating. These readings. They're attempting to forcibly evolve them into some kind of interdimensional beings. But the process is unstable. If we don't stop it soon. She didn't need to finish. Everyone understood they were running out of time. But that barrier of twisted space stood between them and their children, seeming to mock their efforts. Admiral Chen stood at the viewport, watching the strange station pulse with otherworldly energy. 20 years in space had taught him one thing: there was always a way. Always. He turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Options. I want options. How do we get through that barrier? The tactical officer spoke up first. Sir, conventional weapons are useless. Our missiles just disappear into that twisted space. What about the new quantum torpedoes? Rodriguez suggested. They're designed to phase through normal matter. Not enough, Dr. West interrupted. That barrier isn't just warped space, it's a deliberate manipulation of dimensional boundaries. We need to think like them. Fight fire with fire. She pulled up a complex diagram on the main screen. Look at these energy patterns. The station isn't just bending space, it's creating controlled tears in reality. If we could replicate that effect, but inverse the polarity. You're talking about creating our own dimensional rift, the science officer said, catching on. But the power requirements would be massive. We'd have to channel energy from the entire fleet, and even then. A new transmission cut through their discussion, another child's voice, but this one was different. Stronger. Fighting against whatever was being done to them. The light. They use the light to change us. But it's wrong. We're not supposed to be this way. Please. If you can hear us. We're trying to fight it, but there are so many of them in our heads now. Admiral Chen's expression hardened as he made his decision. Dr. West, how quickly can you modify our ship's power systems to create that dimensional rift? It's incredibly dangerous, she warned. One miscalculation, and we could tear this whole region of space apart. And even if it works, we'd only have minutes before the power drain leaves us defenseless. Minutes is all we need. The Admiral opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral Chen. In the next few moments, we're going to attempt something that's never been done before. It will be dangerous. It may be impossible. But on the other side of that barrier are our children, and they're counting on us. Whatever happens next, whatever we face on that station, remember why we're here. Remember what they took from us. He looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of his crew. Humanity didn't come to the stars to become someone else's science experiment. We didn't fight our way across the galaxy to let some advanced race decide our children's future. If they want to see evolution in action, let's show them how humans evolve under pressure. As Dr. West and her team began the modifications, the alien station pulsed with increasing intensity. Whatever process was being done to the children was reaching its critical phase. The race against time had begun, and failure wasn't an option. The station's barriers shimmered and crackled with impossible energies as the fleet channeled its power through the Hyperion. But just as they prepared to breach the weakening dimensional wall, Dr. West's instruments detected something that made her blood run cold. Admiral, stop! The children, their genetic transformations, they're becoming synchronized. They're linking together somehow, forming a network across dimensional space. This isn't just about individual gates anymore. They're creating something much bigger. Through the fluctuating barrier, they could see the station's interior spaces beginning to fold and unfold in ways that defied physics. The children's voices came through again, but now they spoke as one, their words echoing with power that made the ship's sensors spike. We understand now. We see what they couldn't. They thought they were our masters, but they were just the key that unlocked what humanity was always meant to become. We are not their salvation. We are their replacement. Admiral Chen watched in awe as patches of reality around the station began to shimmer and shift. Dr. West, what exactly are we seeing here? The scientist's hands flew across her console, trying to make sense of the readings. The dormant genes, they weren't designed to create separate dimensional gates. When activated in multiple humans simultaneously, they form a collective consciousness that can manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Our children aren't just becoming bridges between dimensions, they're becoming architects of reality. Suddenly, the tactical officer's station lit up with warnings. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching through subspace. Multiple vessels, bigger than anything we've ever encountered. I think this is what they were running from. The alien harmonic voice cut through their communications one last time, now tinged with desperation. You do not understand what you've done. They will consume everything. We sought to use your children as an escape route, but you've instead given them the power to reshape existence itself. The devourers come. Reality itself will end. But the children's unified voice responded with something that sounded almost like laughter. No. You never understood what humanity really is. We don't run from monsters. We stand and fight. And now, thanks to you, we have the power to fight on every level of existence. The massive alien ships began emerging from subspace, grotesque things that seemed to eat the light around them. But as they approached, the children's transformed consciousness reached out across dimensions, and reality itself began to respond to their will. Sir, Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, her voice filled with wonder. The children, they're not just defending themselves. They're rewriting the laws of physics in localized spaces. They're creating rules that those things can't exist in. Dr. West's eyes widened as she understood. Of course. The genes weren't weaponry or escape routes. They were humanity's survival adaptation, not to run from threats, but to face them on every possible level of existence. We were engineered to be reality's immune system. Through the dissolving barrier, they could see the children's bodies floating in chambers throughout the station, glowing with internal light as their minds reached across dimensions. But unlike their captors' intentions, they weren't opening passages to flee through, they were fortifying existence itself against the encroaching darkness. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, those massive ships, they're starting to break apart. It's like reality itself is rejecting them. The laws of physics are being rewritten to make their existence impossible. But the power involved was taking its toll. The station's structure was beginning to buckle under the strain of containing so much dimensional energy. They could hear the strain in the children's unified voice as they spoke again. We can hold them back, push them out of our reality entirely. But the station can't contain this much power. We need anchors. We need our parents, our people. We need humanity's strength to stabilize what we've become. Admiral Chen understood immediately. The children had the power, but they needed the fleet's help to survive using it. They needed their connection to humanity to remain human themselves, even as they transcended normal existence. All ships, prepare for emergency rescue operations. The moment that barrier falls, we're going in. Whatever our children have become, whatever power they've awakened, they're still ours. And we're bringing them home. As the barrier began to dissolve, they could see the transformed children beginning to glow brighter, their combined power reaching out to reshape reality itself. The human fleet prepared to dash into the chaos, even as space itself seemed to warp and bend around them. The true battle for humanity's future and perhaps the future of reality itself was about to begin. The moment the dimensional barrier fell, the human fleet surged forward. The Hyperion led the charge into the chaos of the disintegrating station, where reality itself seemed to be unraveling. Through corridors that twisted in impossible ways, rescue teams rushed to reach the children, guided by the pulses of energy that marked their locations. Admiral Chin and Dr. West led the team into the central chamber, where the sight before them defied comprehension. The children floated in streams of light, their bodies glowing with internal radiance, as they worked together to hold back the cosmic horror trying to break through into our reality. But the strain was showing. Tears streaked down their faces as they fought to maintain control of their newfound power. The Devourers, the children's unified voice echoed through their minds. They consume realities, break down the walls between dimensions. The Kryvax found us, tried to use us as an escape route. But we can be so much more. We can end this threat forever if you help us hold on to who we are. Dr. West rushed to the nearest control panel, her fingers flying over the alien technology. The power readings are off the scale. Their minds are linked across multiple dimensions, but their bodies are still human. They can't contain this much energy for long. The station shuddered as another wave of the massive Devourer ships pressed against the barriers of reality the children had created. Through the station's viewing ports, they could see space itself buckling as the monstrous entities tried to force their way through. Hook up the fleet's power systems, Admiral Chen ordered. Give them everything we've got. They need anchors? Let's be their anchor. As the engineering teams worked to connect their ship's power to the station, the Admiral approached the nearest floating child. He recognized him, Tommy Chen, no relation, but a boy he met during the New Eden colony inspection just weeks ago. Despite the otherworldly light surrounding him, despite the power coursing through him, he was still just a scared kid trying to be brave. We're here now, the Admiral said softly. All of us. Your parents, your people. You don't have to do this alone anymore. The children's voice responded, but this time it carried individual tones within the unity. It hurts. Holding back so much darkness. We can see everything now, all the realities they've already consumed. They've destroyed so many worlds, so many species. We can stop them, but what? Dr. West asked, moving closer. But we'll have to change everything. Reality itself needs to be reinforced. The walls between dimensions need to be strengthened. We can do it, but we won't be able to come back. Not completely. Not the way we were. The Admiral's heart clenched, but before he could respond, the station's sensors screamed in warning. The Devourers had found a weak point and were pushing through. Reality began to tear around them. No choice now, the children's voice rang out. Everyone, clear the chamber. We need to show them what humanity really is. As the rescue teams scrambled to evacuate, Dr. West's instruments picked up something extraordinary. Admiral, look! The children, they're not just linking with each other anymore. They're connecting to every human in range. They're drawing on our strength, our memories, our very humanity. The chamber filled with blinding light as the children's power surged. But this time, it wasn't just their power, it was the combined strength of every parent, every rescue worker, every fleet crew member. Their determination, their love, their fierce protective instinct all flowed into the children, amplifying their ability to reshape reality itself. The Devourers pressed harder, their impossible forms beginning to manifest in normal space. But as they did, the children acted. Reality itself began to change, not just locally, but across all dimensions. New laws of physics were being written, fundamental forces rearranged to create a universe where such horrors couldn't exist. Admiral Chen watched in awe as space itself seemed to crystallize around them, becoming something stronger, more resilient. The Devourers' forms began to dissolve, their very existence becoming impossible in this reinforced reality. But as the threat faded, something else happened, something none of them expected. The children's bodies began to shimmer and change, becoming beings of pure light and energy. Yet within each glowing form, their human features were still visible, like photographs in frosted glass. "We understand now," they spoke one last time, their voices filled with joy and sadness in equal measure. "This was always our purpose, not to escape the monsters, but to defeat them. To make reality itself strong enough to resist them. We have to complete the change, become the guardians we were meant to be. But we'll still be here, watching, protecting. We'll still be human, just a different kind of human." As the station stabilized and the last traces of the devourers vanished, the transformed children began to fade into the fabric of reality itself. They didn't disappear completely. Instead, they became something like cosmic antibodies, living guardians woven into the very structure of space-time. The Admiral stood in the empty chamber, tears streaming down his face. Dr. West's instruments showed something remarkable, traces of the children's consciousness scattered throughout reality, watching, protecting, making sure no cosmic horror could ever threaten existence again. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the doorway, her voice thick with emotion. "We're getting reports from across the galaxy. The Kryvax ships, they're all powering down. Their crews. They're waking up, like they're coming out of a long nightmare. Whatever was controlling them, it's gone now." Admiral Chen placed his hand against the chamber wall, feeling a faint warmth that seemed to pulse in response. The children were still there, in their own way. Different, changed, but still themselves. Still humanity's children, now and forever. "Send word to Earth," he said quietly. Tell them our children saved everything. And they're still watching over us, just from a different perspective now. They've become humanity's greatest gift to the universe, its protectors, its guardians, its hope." As the fleet prepared to return home, new energy patterns rippled through space, patterns that would become known as the children's light. And in quiet moments, parents across human space would sometimes feel a familiar presence, a loving touch from somewhere beyond normal reality, reminding them that their children were still there, still loving them, still human, just evolved into something wonderful and new. In the months that followed, humanity grappled with its new reality. The Perseus Transit, once a dangerous anomaly zone, became a place of pilgrimage. Scientists and families alike traveled there, hoping to feel closer to the children who had become part of the cosmic fabric. The station itself was preserved as a memorial, its twisted corridors and dimensional scars serving as a reminder of both what was lost and what was gained. Dr. Catherine West established the Guardian Contact Initiative, working to understand and communicate with the transformed children. Through her research, patterns emerged. The children's light, as it came to be known, appeared most strongly during moments of crisis or celebration. When a colony ship nearly collided with an asteroid, mysterious forces gently nudged it to safety. When a young girl got lost in the forests of New Eden, sparkles of light led searchers to her location. Admiral Chen remained in service, but his mission changed. The United Earth Defense Force transformed into an organization dedicated to understanding and protecting the new dimensional barriers the children had created. They worked closely with the now freed Kryvax, whose scientists helped humanity understand the deeper implications of what had occurred. "The children didn't just save us from the devourers," a Kryvax elder explained during a joint scientific conference. "They rewrote the fundamental laws of reality to prevent such threats from ever emerging again. They became living guardians, woven into the very fabric of existence. Our species spent millennia running from the darkness between dimensions. Your children chose to stand and fight, and they won. The changes weren't limited to grand cosmic scales." Parents of the transformed children reported strange but comforting experiences. A father working late in his lab would smell his daughter's favorite flower, accompanied by a gentle pulse of light. A mother celebrating her birthday would feel a warm embrace and hear a whispered "I love you" in her mind. The children were keeping their promise, different, but still present, still loving, still human in all the ways that truly mattered. Thompson Research Base, built near the Persis Transit, became the center for studying these phenomena. Dr. West's team made breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding the new cosmic architecture the children had created. They discovered that the transformed children hadn't just strengthened reality, they'd added layers of protection, fail-safes, and what could only be described as immune responses to dimensional threats. It's like they created cosmic antibodies, Dr. West explained during a briefing. But they did it in a way that preserved their consciousness, their memories, their connections to us. They're not just mindless guardians, they are children, growing and learning in ways we're only beginning to understand. The Kryvax, freed from whatever had been controlling them, proved to be valuable allies in understanding these changes. Their own children, they revealed, had been taken by the same dark force generations ago. The tragedy had led them to search for a solution, eventually discovering humanity's dormant potential. Their desperation had led them to terrible choices, but in the end, humanity had achieved what they couldn't, not through force or control, but through love, determination, and the unbreakable bonds between parent and child. 1 year after the transformation, humanity gathered for a galaxy-wide remembrance ceremony. As Admiral Chen stood at the podium aboard the Hyperion, now permanently stationed near the memorial, he felt that familiar warmth that indicated the children were near. "We gathered today not to mourn," he began, his voice carrying to colonies and ships across human space, "but to celebrate. 1 year ago, we thought we had lost our children. Instead, they showed us what humanity could become. They taught us that evolution isn't just about survival, it's about choice, about facing challenges head-on, about transforming adversity into opportunity." As he spoke, the children's light began to appear throughout human space. On every colony, every ship, every station, familiar patterns of light danced and swirled. Parents felt the presence of their transformed children, not gone but transformed into something wonderful and new. Our children chose to become guardians not just of humanity, but of reality itself. They took a power meant to open escape routes, and used it instead to stand and fight. They showed the universe what humans do when faced with impossible odds: we adapt, we overcome, and we protect not just ourselves but everyone. The light patterns intensified, and for a moment, everyone in human space felt it, a wave of love, of connection, of reassurance that their children were still with them, still growing, still learning, still loving. They had become something greater, but they had kept their humanity intact. A week later, Dr. West made another breakthrough. The children's consciousness, spread throughout reality, was evolving further. They weren't just protecting, they were creating new forms of energy, new possibilities, new ways of thinking about existence itself. They were growing up, in their own unique way, and taking humanity with them into a future no one could have imagined. "They're not just guardians anymore," she explained to Admiral Chen as they watched new patterns of light dance across the memorial station. "They're teachers, showing us how to understand the deeper layers of reality. Every human child born now carries that same potential within them. Not to be taken, not to be forced, but to choose their own path when the time comes." The Admiral smiled, feeling the warm presence that he now knew was Tommy Chin, still watching over them all. "So humanity's next generation will have a choice: remain as they are, or join their brothers and sisters as guardians of reality." "Yes," Dr. West nodded, "but it's more than that. The children didn't just save us from one threat, they gave humanity its next great adventure. They showed us that evolution isn't about becoming less human, but about becoming more of what we already are: protectors, explorers, dreamers." As if in response, the lights around them pulsed warmly. In that moment, both the Admiral and the Doctor understood this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Humanity's children had become the guardians of reality itself, and in doing so, they had opened the door for all of humanity to grow, to evolve, to become something greater while keeping their essential humanity intact. The universe would never be the same, but then again, either would humanity. And somewhere in the spaces between spaces, in the folds of reality itself, children of light danced and played and grew, watching over their families with love, protecting existence with determination, and showing everyone who encountered them that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in running from monsters, it was in facing them, overcoming them, and transforming them into opportunities for growth. The children's light continued to shine throughout human space, a constant reminder that love transcends dimensions, that family bonds survive even the most radical transformations, and that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had faced the darkness between dimensions and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. And in that transformation, they had discovered what humanity had always been meant to become: not just survivors, not just warriors, but guardians of reality itself, protecting not just their own future, but the future of all existence. In the end, what had seemed like a tragedy had become humanity's greatest triumph. The children who had been taken returned as something more, showing the universe that when you threaten human children, you don't just sign your own death warrant, you give humanity the opportunity to evolve into something beyond imagination. And in that evolution, they kept the one thing that mattered most: their humanity itself, transformed but undiminished, now and forever reaching for the stars.